The door didn't slam in my face. That would have been easier. Instead, it opened just enough for my stepfather to block the doorway with his body and say, calmly, almost politely, "You're not family." For a second, I smiled because that's what I've always done when something hurts too much to process. Then I saw my mom behind him. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't angry. She was smiling. Quietly. Comfortably. Like this was exactly how the evening was supposed to go. Over his shoulder, I watched her lift my place card off the table and slide my chair away. She handed my seat to my sister's boyfriend, someone who had known them for 6 months, while I'd spent my whole life trying to earn that spot. No one argued for me. No one even said my name. So I didn't fight. I didn't beg. I nodded, walked back to my car, and sent the message I'd been saving for months. 5 minutes later, half the table stood up and walked out. I learned early that in my family, love wasn't unconditional. It was measured. Measured by how quiet you were, by how agreeable you sounded, by whether you made things easy for everyone else. My name is Emma Carter, and for as long as I can remember, I was the daughter they tolerated, not the one they celebrated. My mom, Linda, had a sharp memory when it came to my mistakes. She could recall, in perfect detail, the time I forgot to thaw the chicken, the B I got in chemistry, the tone I used when I was tired after work. But when it came to my achievements, scholarships, extra shifts to help with bills, the weekends I spent babysitting so she could rest her memory suddenly failed her. "Oh, that was nothing," she'd say. "Any kid would have done that." Then there was my younger sister, Rachel. Rachel never had to earn affection. She walked into a room and people softened. She laughed, and my mom laughed louder. She cried, and the whole house rearranged itself around her feelings. Rachel was effortless. I was exhausting. When my mom married Mark Reynolds, things didn't get better, they just became more organized. Mark liked order. Schedules. Clean narratives. A family that looked good from the outside. He never yelled at me. He didn't have to. His disappointment lived in sighs, in raised eyebrows, in sentences that always ended the same way. "Emma, you're being difficult again. Emma, why can't you just let things go? Emma, it's a holiday. Don't ruin the mood." I learned how to shrink. How to smile when my chest felt tight. How to swallow words before they became drama. I told myself that if I just tried harder, loved quieter, needed less, eventually, they'd see me. I didn't realize back then that the problem was never how much space I took up. It was that they had already decided how little I deserved. By the time Thanksgiving came around that year, I already knew better than to expect anything to change. I'd spent enough holidays sitting at the edge of conversations, enough dinners nodding through backhanded comments, enough birthdays blowing out candles. No one really watched me light. If I'm being honest, I had planned to stay home, order takeout, pretend the day didn't exist. Then Maya texted me. Maya was my cousin on my mom's side, the one person in that entire family who never treated me like an inconvenience. She didn't rush to fill silences or smooth things over. She noticed things, and when she asked how I was, she actually waited for the answer. "You're coming tomorrow," she wrote. "I saved you a seat." I stared at that message longer than I want to admit. Saved. You, a seat. No one had ever said that to me before. Not my mom, not Mark, not even Rachel. In my family, I usually showed up and figured out where to stand after everyone else had settled. I typed back, then erased it. Typed again. "What if they start something?" The reply came almost immediately. "Then we won't pretend it didn't happen." That was the thing about Maya. She didn't promise it would be easy. She just promised I wouldn't be alone. So the next morning, I got dressed. I bought a bottle of wine my mom liked, the expensive kind she bragged about to guests but never opened for me. I told myself this wasn't about hoping for kindness. It was about closure. About proving to myself that I'd tried one last time. As I drove toward my childhood home, my hands tightened around the steering wheel. I didn't know it yet, but this wasn't going to be another quiet disappointment. This was the day everything finally broke. The house looked exactly the same. Perfect, polished, and painfully familiar. The lawn was trimmed into neat lines. A plastic turkey was staked into the yard like some kind of cheerful warning sign. Through the open kitchen window, I could smell butter, garlic, and cinnamon drifting into the cold air, comforting scents tied to memories that had never really been mine. Every parking spot near the house was already taken. I parked 2 houses down, like I always did, and sat there for a moment with the engine running. I watched silhouettes move behind the curtains. Laughter spilled out in bursts, sharp, practiced, well-timed. They were already performing. I checked my phone. No new messages. Maya must have been busy helping inside. I told myself not to overthink it. I grabbed the wine, locked my car, and walked up the driveway, each step feeling heavier than the last. As I climbed the front porch, I caught my reflection in the glass door. I looked fine. Put together. Normal. For a second, I wondered why I still felt like a trespasser in the place I grew up. I reached for the doorknob. It turned, but the door didn't fully open. Instead, it stopped short, blocked by a familiar frame. Mark. He filled the doorway like he'd been waiting there. Hand braced against the door, body angled just enough to keep me outside. He didn't look surprised to see me. If anything, he looked relieved. "Emma," he said, lowering his voice, like we were sharing a secret. "This isn't a good time." I blinked. What? Behind him, I could see into the dining room. The table was set, plates arranged, name cards placed with careful symmetry. Everyone was already seated, laughing, talking, clinking glasses. There was one empty chair, my chair. Mark followed my gaze and shifted slightly, blocking my view again. He smiled, thin and tight. "Let's not do this today," he said. "You being here just changes the energy." I felt my stomach drop. "I haven't even walked in," I said. He shrugged, like that proved his point. Then, calm as if he were stating the weather, he said it. "You're not family." The words didn't land all at once. They sank in slowly, heavy and final, like a door locking from the inside. And that was when I saw my mom behind him standing at the table, watching everything unfold, smiling. For a moment, I thought I might have imagined it, the smile, but then my mom moved, and the truth sharpened into focus. She didn't rush toward the door. She didn't ask what was wrong. She didn't even look confused. She stood there, relaxed, one hand resting on the back of a chair, the other holding a folded place card. My place card. "Mom?" I said. My voice came out smaller than I meant it to. "What's going on?" She glanced at me the way you glance at a cashier who's taking too long, impatient, slightly annoyed. "Emma," she said softly, "don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Harder?" Mark tilted his head, satisfied. "See? This is exactly what I meant." I ignored him. I stepped forward, but he didn't move. The door stayed half open, like a wound that refused to close. "Linda," I said, louder now. "Why are you giving my seat away?" She sighed, slow and deliberate, like I was the one embarrassing her. Then she turned, reached across the table, and slid the chair out. "Kyle, sweetheart," she said brightly. "Why don't you sit here?" Kyle, my sister's boyfriend, looked up, startled. "Oh, are you sure?" Rachel laughed, quick and light. "Yeah, Mom, that's fine." "Fine." Kyle hesitated, glanced toward the door, then back at the chair. He smiled awkwardly and sat down. The sound of the chair scraping against the floor hit me harder than Mark's words ever could. "That was my seat," I said. Mom finally looked directly at me. Her smile didn't fade, it tightened. "You don't need to be so dramatic," she said. "You weren't going to stay long anyway." I felt something crack in my chest. "Did you plan this?" I asked. No one answered. Rachel took a sip of her wine. Someone at the far end of the table chuckled, trying to ease the tension. The room moved on. Like I was already gone. Mark leaned closer, his voice low and firm. "Go home, Emma. Don't ruin Thanksgiving." I waited. For anger, for tears, for the familiar urge to plead. None of it came. Instead, I nodded. "Okay," I said. Mark blinked, surprised. My mom's smile faltered just for a second. I stepped back, turned around, and walked down the porch steps with the wine still in my hand. No one followed. No one called my name. As I reached my car, my hands began to shake, not with rage, but with something colder. Because standing there, keys digging into my palm, I realized something they didn't know yet. I hadn't come unprepared, and I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I sat in my car with the engine off, the bottle of wine resting untouched on the passenger seat. My reflection stared back at me in the dark windshield, eyes glassy. Jaw set too tight, but beneath the shock, something else was settling in. Clarity. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't wondering if I'd misunderstood, or if I'd been too sensitive. What happened at that door was intentional. Clean. Rehearsed. And I'd been preparing for it longer than they realized. I unlocked my phone and opened a conversation I'd created months ago, back on a night when Rachel laughed and said, "Emma always makes herself the victim. I have not to get it." My mom had nodded. Mark had added, "She thrives on attention." That was the night I stopped arguing and started collecting. Screenshots of texts sent about me instead of to me. Voice memos where my mom joked that I was too much work. A short video of Mark saying, "If Emma doesn't like how things are, she can leave." Another recording my birthday last year when everyone talked over me like I wasn't sitting right there. I hadn't gathered it out of spite. I did it because every time I tried to explain how they treated me, the story somehow flipped. I became dramatic, unstable, unreliable. Receipts don't gaslight you. I'd narrowed the list carefully. 7 people. Not the loudest, not the cruelest. The ones who still had a conscience. Maya, Aunt Denise, Grandma Helen, Cousin Tyler, Cousin Brooke, Mrs. Collins, and yes, Kyle. I typed one sentence. No emotion, no explanation. I'm done staying quiet. If you're at that table right now, you deserve to know the truth. I attached the file. 5 minutes long. Edited only for clarity, timestamps included. Silence left intact. My thumb hovered over send. For a split second, I thought about turning the car around. Walking back. Apologizing for something I didn't do. Then I pictured my mom smiling as she gave my seat away. I pressed send. The message delivered instantly. I leaned back against the headrest, heart pounding not with fear, but with a strange, unfamiliar calm. Whatever happened next, the truth was no longer just mine to carry. I didn't drive away. I don't know why, maybe curiosity, maybe exhaustion, but I stayed parked there, 2 houses down, watching the front of the house through my windshield like it was a stage. At first, nothing happened. My phone buzzed once. Then again, a text from Maya flashed across the screen. "Maya, Emma, what did you just send?" I exhaled slowly but didn't reply. Then the front door flew open. Not gently, not politely. It burst open like someone had shoved it with both hands. Maya stepped out first. She didn't look confused. She didn't look hesitant. She looked angry, the kind of angry that burns clean and bright. She walked straight down the steps, phone pressed to her ear, pacing the sidewalk like she was holding herself back from screaming. Behind her came Grandma Helen. She moved slower, but her posture was rigid, jaw set tight. I'd never seen my grandmother walk away from a family table before. Not once. She paused at the bottom of the steps, turned back toward the house, and said something I couldn't hear, but whatever it was made her shake her head in disgust. Then Mrs. Collins followed, clutching her purse to her chest. "Oh my God," she muttered aloud, even from this distance. "Oh my God." My heart started to race. My phone rang. Maya this time. I answered. "Emma," she said, not even saying hello. Her voice was breathless. "How long have you had those recordings?" "Long enough," I said. There was shouting in the background. I could hear Mark's voice, sharp, raised, panicked. "He's losing it," Maya said. "Mark just yelled that you're sick, that you manipulated everything." I laughed once. Hollow. "Of course he did." "And your mom." Maya stopped, then continued more quietly. "Your mom tried to smile through it. She literally said, 'This is being taken out of context,' while her own voice was playing. And it was in very form. I closed my eyes. Another figure appeared at the door. Cousin Tyler. He came out fast, ripping his napkin off his neck and throwing it onto the porch like it burned him. "I'm not staying for this," I heard him snap. "Not after that." Rachel's voice followed him, high and frantic. "Tyler, wait, Emma always twists things." Maya scoffed into the phone. "She just said you twist things." While the clip of her calling you a burden was still playing, I swallowed hard. Then I saw Kyle. He stood frozen in the doorway, half in, half out, like he couldn't decide which side he belonged to. He looked back into the house, then down at the chair he was sitting in just minutes ago, my chair now abandoned. "What's wrong?" I heard him ask. Why did you give me her seat? Silence. Even from here, I could feel it, the kind of silence that sucks all the air out of a room. Mark barked something I couldn't make out, but Kyle shook his head. I don't think I can be part of this, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. That was when the table truly collapsed. People started leaving in pairs, then individually. Some angry, some stunned, some crying. No one was laughing anymore. No one was clinking glasses. Maya lowered her voice. Emma. Half the table just walked out. I stared at the house, the lights still on, the decorations still perfect, the image still trying to hold itself together, but the illusion was gone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't standing outside wondering why I didn't belong. I was watching them realize they couldn't hide it anymore. And somehow, in the quiet of my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Maya got into my car like someone stepping out of a burning building. She slammed the door, locked it out of instinct, then just sat there for a second, breathing hard. They're losing it, she said finally. Completely. I didn't answer. I was still staring at the house, the lights glowing warmly, the curtains drawn, pretending nothing had changed. Mark keeps pacing back and forth, Maya continued. He's saying you planned this, that you came tonight hoping to cause a scene. I let out a slow laugh. Of course he is. He told everyone you've been unstable for years, she added, that you record people because you have issues. And did anyone ask why I felt the need to? I asked. Maya shook her head. No, that part makes him uncomfortable. My phone buzzed again. Then again, I glanced down. Mom again, Rachel, Mark. I turned the screen face down. They're panicking, Maya said softly. Not because they hurt you. Because they can't control the story anymore. As if on cue, my phone lit up once more, but this time it wasn't family. Kyle. I opened the message. Emma, I swear I didn't know. Your mom handed me your seat like it was nothing. I asked why, and no one answered me. I don't think I can stay here. I stared at the words. Not angry. Not satisfied. Just tired. He finally sees it, Maya said after reading over my shoulder. Seeing it isn't the same as stopping it, I replied. But it's a start. Then my phone rang again. A number I hadn't saved, but I knew it instantly. My father. I hesitated. Maya didn't say anything. She just watched me, letting me choose. I answered. Emma, he said. His voice sounded rough, like he'd been swallowing words he didn't know how to say. I watched the whole thing. I closed my eyes. All of it? Yes. A pause. More than once. I waited. I kept telling myself it wasn't that bad, he continued. That you and your mom just didn't get along. That you were strong, you'd handle it. My grip tightened on the phone. But hearing her call you a burden, he said quietly, and watching Mark block the door like that. His voice cracked. I should have protected you. I didn't. The silence between us stretched. What do you want from me now? I asked. I don't expect forgiveness, he said quickly. I just needed you to know this time I see it. And you were never imagining any of it. That was the moment my chest finally gave in. Not with sobs. With something heavier. Grief for a childhood where someone should have spoken up sooner. After I hung up, Maya reached across the console and squeezed my hand. That mattered, she said. It did, I admitted. But it doesn't erase today. My phone buzzed again. This time, a long message from my mom. I opened it. I don't understand why you would do this to us. We were trying to keep the peace. You embarrassed the family in front of everyone. This could have been handled privately. I read it slowly, carefully. Not once did she say sorry. Not once did she ask if I was okay. Not once did she mention the door, or the seat, or the smile. I typed back one sentence. You didn't want peace. You wanted my silence. I sent it. The phone went quiet. And for the first time that night, I felt something solid settle inside me, not anger, not revenge, finality. They could spin it, deny it, rewrite it, but they could never unsee what everyone else had just seen, and neither could I. I didn't go back to that house. I didn't circle the block. I didn't sit there hoping someone would run after me, breathless and apologetic, calling my name like it mattered. I already knew how that story went. Someone would ask me to talk, to be reasonable, to understand how hard this was for everyone else. Hard for them always meant silent for me. so I drove home. The apartment lights flickered on as I unlocked the door, revealing the small, imperfect space that had quietly become mine over the years. The couch I bought secondhand. The chipped mug I always used because no one else claimed it. The stack of books on the coffee table that I actually read instead of displaying for guests. No one here needed me to be smaller. Maya followed me inside and kicked off her shoes without asking. She didn't fill the silence with jokes or platitudes. She just sat down beside me on the floor, back against the couch, like she knew that tonight wasn't about fixing anything. It was about letting it be broken. For a long time, we didn't talk. We ate instant noodles straight from the pot, steam fogging the air, the sound of forks clinking soft and unceremonious. Outside, cars passed. Somewhere, families laughed. Somewhere else, someone was crying into a bathroom towel. Life went on. You know, Maya said finally, staring into her mug. People always think the worst part is being told you're not family. I didn't answer. My throat was tight. But that wasn't it, she continued. The worst part was your mom smiling. I closed my eyes. That smile replayed itself again and again, the ease of it, the comfort. The way she'd handed my seat away like it was nothing more than a fork placed in the wrong setting. I spent years thinking if I just explained myself better, I said quietly. If I didn't sound so emotional, if I didn't react so much, that eventually she'd hear me. Maya shook her head. She heard you. She just decided you were inconvenient. That truth hurt, but not in the way it used to. It didn't feel like a fresh wound. It felt like pressure being released from something that had been infected for years. Over the next few days, the fallout rolled in like distant thunder. Texts from relatives who suddenly didn't want to pick sides. Messages from people who said they were shocked, then followed it up with reasons I should have been more patient. A few apologies that felt sincere, and many that felt like they were written to clear a conscience rather than repair harm. My mom didn't apologize. She sent paragraphs about betrayal, about embarrassment, about how families shouldn't air private matters. She never once mentioned the door, or the chair, or the way she looked at me while it happened. That told me everything I needed to know. Mark sent one message. Just one. You went too far. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it without responding. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to defend myself. Rachel unfriended me, then blocked me. Then, 2 days later, sent a message asking if I could talk like adults. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because I finally understood something crucial. Closure doesn't come from conversations with people who benefit from misunderstanding you. It comes from choosing yourself anyway. The strangest part was the quiet. No more waiting for the next family gathering where I'd rehearse lines in my head. No more bracing myself for comments disguised as jokes. No more scanning faces to see if I was welcome or merely tolerated. At first, the quiet felt empty. Then it felt safe. I started sleeping through the night. I stopped jumping when my phone buzzed. I caught myself laughing, real laughter at things that had nothing to do with proving I was okay. I called my dad a week later, not because I owed him forgiveness, but because I wanted clarity. We talked slowly, carefully, like two people learning a new language. He didn't ask me to reconcile. He didn't excuse what happened. He just listened. And when he said, I should have done more, I let the words exist without trying to make them heal me. Some apologies come too late to change the past, but they can still shape the future. I didn't rush to replace my family. I didn't build a dramatic, chosen family overnight. What I did instead was simpler and stronger. I let people show up. Maya, of course. A coworker who invited me for coffee and actually meant it. A neighbor who remembered my name. Friends who didn't flinch when I said, that hurt. I built a table that didn't require me to earn my seat. And slowly, something shifted. I stopped defining myself by who didn't want me. I stopped narrating my life as a reaction to rejection. I stopped wondering if I was too much or not enough. I was just enough. One night, weeks later, I took out a notebook and wrote something I'd never allowed myself to write before. Not a letter to my mom, not a defense, not an explanation, just a sentence. I didn't lose a family, I shed one. I read it back again and again. Because loss implies something was taken from you, what I felt was relief. Walking away didn't make me heartless. It didn't make me cruel. It didn't make me wrong. It made me honest. I used to believe family was something you survived. Now I know better. Family is where you don't have to disappear to keep the peace. And for the first time in my life, standing alone didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like freedom.